Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone. Looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Amber and Cindy.
Hello.
Hello.
And if this is your first time joining us, we're glad to have you here. And if you're returning, then welcome back. Today we are talking about taking your crafts with you when you travel. And by crafts, I'm using that term very loosely. I know we talk about scrapbooking and stuff a lot because that's the main craft that Mom and I do. But there's lots of different hobbies and craft things that you can take on the go with you. And by travel, I mean day trips,
Anywhere.
road trips, vacation, etc. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because recently Travis, Raina, and I went on a trip, and this wasn't the first time that I'd done this. This was actually a returning thing that I've been doing for a couple of years now, where whenever I go to stay in a hotel or something, I would bring my crafts, my scrapbook stuff with me and try to scrapbook while I'm in the hotel or wherever I might be at. I love the idea of just being able to pop my stuff out and work on it. And even back when I was in college, I used to have a pair of scissors in my purse because I would have my APN, and if I saw something cool, I would cut something out and paste it into my APN, kind of like as a collage. And that was kind of like my travel journal at the time, you know.
And remind us what an APN is again.
Oh, all-purpose notebook.
Yes.
So I know we've mentioned that a couple of times in various posts.
Yes.
We use the word APN.
I never heard that term either, except for the two of you. So
I learned it from Amber, but I was like, wow, there's actually a cool name for having a spiral.
It's my notebook,
it was
my
just
notepad.
like I've been keeping an APN since middle school, and I just, I call it my all-purpose notebook,
Well,
and
it kind
for
of
short, APN. Yeah.
A lot of people used to keep a journal with them all the time. We were talking before we started recording that a lot of the famous writers or whatever would take.
Yeah, they journal.
So
They
mine
journaled
is,
their trips.
sitting right in front of me right now.
Darwin kept a journal of the things that he discovered when he went to the Galapagos Islands. People carried notebooks with them everywhere they went because they journaled their lives all the time. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
And so your little all-purpose notebook is just an extension of that journal that people
or my little scrapbook.
or your little
On the
scrapbook or
fly
whatever.
scrapbook, yeah. So, one of the times that I remember doing this for the first time, Mom and I had become really into the scrapbooking, and we had been going on the weekends to the scrapbook store to spend time in the store scrapbooking, and so we had really packed our stuff up really well and got accustomed to toting it to the store and working on it for the weekend. And then we had a trip we needed to go on, and it was I want a scrapbook. So then we were we should scrapbook in the hotel room.
Well, I was actually because I was doing the layout a day challenge.
That's right.
Which I've talked about before. And it's a month-long challenge, not unlike my 365, which we've also mentioned before. But on the layout a day challenge, you scrapbook a page every day. And we were going on a trip to promote our scrapbooking cruises, and we were going to be visiting scrapbooking stores. And we thought, let's just I want to work on my scrapbooks so that I can keep up with my layout a day. And we're going to be inspired to scrapbook anyway. So we took a little bit of stuff with us to work on in the hotel. And we actually, one night we sat in front of watched a movie or something while we scrapbooked. And
we've done it so many times. I mean, we did it on my bachelorette trip.
And
Yes.
I was really shocked. Well, I wasn't shocked because I know y'all, but it was really interesting. We get in the hotel room and y'all just set up at each table and just start pulling out. You brought your little printer and everything. You just started pulling out scrapbook stuff, and I'm like, okay, I brought books to read and stuff. I
Yeah.
didn't bring anything like that, you know.
This is not unlike that. It's just that our hobby has a lot of little parts to it, you know.
Right.
Mine, when we first went on our first cruise, I actually journaled the whole time for the purpose of scrapbooking. I mean, we actually had scrapbook stuff with us too, but I didn't scrapbook in the room. But I had an APN or a journal, and every night before we went to bed, I journaled what we did, what we ate, what we did, everything, so that I could go scrapbook it. So that was where I kind of first got into that habit of doing that, because when I go on trips, I want to remember all the details.
Right. The memory is best preserved
right then when you do it. Right.
Because then you remember like exactly how you felt.
Yes. And it evolved into just bringing my scrapbooks with me and doing the scrapbooking right into the book while I'm there. So I've done several travel journals or travel albums that I worked on while I was on the trip, and I will link those because I've put flip throughs on my personal YouTube channel, my crafty YouTube channel, and you can see the evolution of those, because they've gone from really elaborate to very simple even. And some of them are actually more like the kinds of travel journals that a Darwin or somebody else like that would have done, where it's all sketches.
Yeah, that's what we did when we went on our canoe trip.
Yes, I take that on my canoe trip or a camping trip often, and I just sketch and draw and journal. So there's lots of different ways, but even beyond that, before that, when we would travel back home, when we moved to the Dallas area, we would often travel back to Lubbock to visit family and stuff like that, you know, during the holidays. And I would bring my crochet with me, and I would crochet in the car while we're driving, because I'm bored. And I can't do that anymore because I can't see those tiny stitches and the road's too bumpy. Or even just sitting at my mother-in-law's house while everybody's talking, I would just be sitting there crocheting away, because that's something I can do with my hands while we're sitting there.
From having idle hands.
I can't stand the idle hands thing. I will sit and pick at my nails and you know.
That's what I'm doing right now.
I can't. I always have to have something going on with my hands, and even when I'm talking, I'm moving my hands, you know. But that's what I like to do. So I like to bring my crafts with me, or something that I can work on.
Yeah, you had mentioned books. Like, whenever I go on trips, I found that if I was sharing a room with someone, I would try to read a book, because I love the idea of reading a book on your trip and
I do
finishing
too.
it while you're on the trip.
I always wait till people fall asleep and then I read.
know. Yeah, because and I have a hard time because then everyone's snoring or whatever. But I found that, like, I couldn't get as much reading done as I wanted. So that's why I like doing the scrapbooking, or like your crochet. You can do that.
I can do that while everybody's
while
still
you
awake
talk.
and talking.
Yeah.
Or while everybody's watching a movie. I can't read while people are watching a movie. I can crochet, but depending on what I'm working on, you know, that takes up a lot of room sometimes. Sometimes a travel journal, a traveler's journal, a travel notebook is just a small little book, a pen, a pencil, maybe some watercolors in a little pack, or
colored pencils.
Colored pencils. That's a really small thing to pack. When she's talking about us bringing our printers, we are not bringing like our household inkjet or laser printer.
Like a little small printer.
We have the little small selfie printers that are, one of them is like the size of a deck of cards. And it prints 2x3. That's a Sprocket printer. That one has been discontinued, but they have other ones that are similar to it, made by Hewlett Packard. And then Canon has the Canon selfie printer. It's a little bit bigger than that. What would you say? What would you compare that to in size, Kristen?
Like 6 cans of Spam.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
smaller than the original Nintendo.
Quite a bit smaller.
Yeah. It's pretty small, and
It's about the size of a DVD player nowadays. Like little ones you can get for like $30.
It's pretty small. So, And it makes a very handy handy little printer to do 4x6 prints. So
Right. When we were in New Orleans, I didn't bring my printer with me because, you know, we were doing road trips. So I didn't want to like load the car up with a bunch of stuff.
right.
So I actually just used my phone and sent my photos to the Walgreens, and then we just walked to the Walgreens to pick them up.
That's always an option
And
as well.
then I
yeah.
was actually like literally like full on scrapbooking in the room, and that was a really fun way to decompress, and still get a little bit of me time, because when you're on like a trip, a lot of times you're just so outside of your normal routine that I needed something that was like just for me, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But still, I'm in the room, you know. Travis and Raina were watching, you know, Spider-Man on the TV, and so I just sat at the little desk in the room and just kind of did my thing, and that was how I like decompressed for the day. And I could do that for like an hour, and then I was ready to go to sleep. It's my wind down. What are some other like crafts that you could take on the go?
Well, like I said, I mentioned crochet, obviously knitting, embroidery is another good one.
Oh, yeah.
I actually have an embroidery
The ring?
project that's going on. Yeah, because there's a ring, you know, and whatever you're embroidering on. I'm working on an apron, so so I've got the apron and I've got the ring and I've got the floss or the ribbon. In this case, I'm actually embroidering with ribbon. And you just need some snips and a needle. So it's very portable in a small bag. I've done the crochet with the crochet thread instead of yarn. So when you're crocheting small things, Zentangle is another one.
yeah,
I know a lot of people who take their Zentangle with them, because you can, if you're doing actual Zentangle, you can buy the little tiles and just have a pen and some tiles. And
By tiles, you mean just like pieces of paper?
well, they're special tiles that you buy from Zentangle, and they're
Special drawing paper?
It's drawing paper. There's black ones and off-white or whatever, and so you can just do those, or you can just bring a book or a journal or something like that, and draw or journal in there. Drawing, adult coloring is another good one.
I
I carry all these things with me.
I always take my crossword puzzle with me, and I take my APN, and of course I bring a book, and then I also have a travel journal that's just a journal, not like a scrapbook. It's just a journal that I carry with me. And then I usually bring like my list journal as well.
A bullet journal or something like that is
and
great.
I work on that, and sometimes I will bring my art journal as well, and my pastels.
Those are all good things in there, and they're all small enough. Like even with the art journal, you could have, you know, a glue stick or a liquid glue, and some scissors and a pen and a pencil, and maybe your pastels or some crayons or markers or something like that, and like a magazine or two that you can cut things out of, and you can just go to town with that. There's so many. You could probably travel with most crafts in some form or fashion. I mean, I've traveled with paints, because you can bring like a very small acrylic paint set, the ones like the little tubes. You could travel with a set of watercolors. And they make, I think you have
preloaded paintbrushes. Were not preloaded, but they have water.
the water brushes. Yeah, you could do that. With those, make it really easy to paint with the watercolors, and some of the watercolors, you can buy these little tiny kits that are like the size of a tuna can or a sardine can, that have a whole set of paints in them, because it's just super concentrated. I'm looking around my room at my crafts, trying to think of, you could actually travel with your laptop and design things in Photoshop, you know, do art.
Oh, and digital
art stuff. You could do.
Ooh, that would be fun.
You could
use Canva or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could do all kinds of things. You could do, if you have like Silhouette or Cricut, you could do the design work for that while you're on a trip. Plastic canvas, needlepoint that works with the plastic canvas. You could do that, or just regular, counted cross stitch or other kinds of needlework, crewel work. I'm trying to think. Any kind of hand stitching you could do.
Oh,
that
and
way.
macrame.
Yep, because you could just bring the supplies and work on that. So, there's a lot of things you could travel with. It's depending on how you travel too. Obviously, some things travel a little better than others. I know that like if one of your things is markers and you like to color with markers, particularly like the alcohol markers, like the Copics, you don't want to pack those in your luggage, because they are, they'll like explode or something, the pressure from the luggage.
Oh, really?
I've been told that you could like crack them to where they're closed but not all the way closed. Some people have said, well, they do theirs in their carry-on, but a lot of airlines are really picky about them because they are alcohol ink, and you're not supposed to have alcohol. So that's a kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, that's how I stopped carrying scissors. I literally
Yes.
actually used to carry scissors in my purse all the time when I was a college student. And then I took a flight, and I actually left the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, and it was on my way back home that
you
the
couldn't get 'em.
TSA saw them. I'm like, I don't know how they missed them the first time, but I guess the blade was too long on my scissors. And
Yeah,
I
four
was
inches.
really sad because they were a really nice pair of
Yeah.
art scissors. And
Right.
And I was like, well, I guess I won't be carrying scissors with me ever again.
You could carry them with you on if you check them in your luggage, but you wouldn't be able to use them on the plane or carry them in your carry-on.
I totally forgot they were there.
Yeah.
I just become so accustomed to carrying them with
Well,
me.
and that's happened to a lot of people, even men with their pocket knives. You could carry whittling with you on a trip as well, because all you need is a pocket knife and some wood. But you can't take that
fly.
on a plane.
Yeah.
You've got to check that stuff. And on a cruise ship, similarly, you want to keep your scissors below 4 inches, and you want to watch out for any flammable materials. And you cannot carry any flammables in your checked luggage because that area is decompressed on a plane, so you wouldn't want to carry those. And the ships a lot of times have prohibitions against some of those chemicals, like you're not supposed to bring paints,
Paint thinners.
Undo, which a popular chemical with the scrapbookers. It's a flammable material that loosens the glue. It dissolves the glue, but it's a solvent, and so it is dangerous. There's things like that they're really picky about. So, but you can. I've taken my scrapbooking on many, many cruises. In fact, I organize scrapbooking cruises, and there's things that you can take with you, and there's things you can't. But knowing those things, pay attention to the airline rules or the cruise line's rules about what you're allowed to carry, and just find ways to carry things within those limits. And the less you bring, the better, because the less you bring, the more likely you're going to use it, and you're not going to be overwhelmed with all the different options or whatever. So I always try to keep my packing very small, very, very light with that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I've gotten it down to a science where it's just a small bag now that's maybe about 8.5 by 11.
A little tote bag, yeah.
It's kind of small bag, and like this recent trip, I was really proud of myself because I managed to not bring like half the house with me. And I got a lot done because I had exactly what I needed. I sat and like picked out specific little embellishments in paper and put them in a little envelope.
Yeah.
And brought those with me. And it was nice because I already had a place to store the memorabilia that we picked up, because
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do that little journal, was for all the little wristbands and ticket stubs and stuff from the things that we did on our trip. I wanted to just be able to glue them in
Write
whenever
it
we
right
came
into the
back.
book. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've done a lot of little albums like that. On our, we went on a camping trip, about this time last year, roughly. And I brought, a plain white traveler's notebook, my colored watercolor pencils. Actually, I don't even think I had those that time. I think I just had a pencil, some charcoal pencil, or a graphite pencil, and an eraser and a sharpener, and maybe a black pen. I'm not sure. And mainly what I did was just sketch the things that stood out to me. So each night as we kind of settled in at camp, I've got some great pictures of Raina, because we all brought our things, and she spent the evening sketching in her traveler's notebook as well. And I just kind of sketched the whole trip out, and then I came back with that album with all the sketches in it, and then spent a little time coloring in and inking
Refining
things
it.
and refining it. Yeah, but having that sketch to start with helped me remember the things that were important on that trip that I wanted to remember. So
Things you might not necessarily capture with a picture.
yes. And I kind of did it in a sketchnoting. That one was done in a sketchnoting theme. So there's less journaling, more just little tiny sketches of little things.
Like little icons.
Yes, icons and notes, but in pictorial form. Yeah.
Very fun.
So I'm trying to think what other crafts I've taken with me. The travel albums is the main thing that I take with me these days. Because that is my primary craft right now.
Who knows? It could evolve someday.
It actually could. So, and like I said, I've taken stuff and worked on digital things as well. So, Procreate with your iPad, that's a great one to do also. So you can do all kinds of things while you're traveling. You can write too.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we have kind of talked about everything we could think of at the moment about taking our crafts. I'm sure as soon as we end the record, we'll be like, oh, I forgot this, I forgot that. So make sure
That's what we usually
that
do.
you check out the blog, because if you are only listening to podcasts, you're only getting part of the story. So
That's right. And
we
mine
always
and
go
Amber's
back and
Mine and
have
Amber's
more.
blog will come out after the podcast.
Yeah.
So we can
knows?
add that more things that we thought of after the
yeah.
fact. So yeah.
And I'm sure there will be lots of links also on the Heard It on the podcast.
Yes.
That you can look at if there's any of the products that we mentioned. I'm sure we will have links to several of those, like the Sprocket and the.
Yes.
Well, I don't know if you can get a Sprocket online. You probably can, but
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can buy them through
yeah,
Amazon.
because
I
I'm
know.
sure
So-
some people might be interested in that.
Yep.
Definitely me. Yeah, and we also all have a trip that's coming up, so we'll definitely be blogging about that in the future as well.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
we
and
will.
I will
You'll see
definitely
lots of
be
info about that.
doing my little crafts on the trip.
Yes, yes. So we'll leave you wondering about that, and we'll talk about it after we come back from the trip. So
Yeah. So I would like to give special thanks to Red Door Studios and Creative Audio Tech for music and the recording equipment. And would also like to thank our loyal listeners. Next week. What are we talking about next week?
So our next week's podcast is going to be about the 7 secrets for a perfect holiday. And we're going to be, since we're getting ready for the holidays, we're going to be talking about what we can do to make our holidays perfect.
Is there such a thing?
70%.
Yes, yeah, 70% perfect.
Oh, yeah, we went
remember?
back to that. Yes. Okay, well, see, we'll talk about the secrets of making it perfect, and you might be surprised what those secrets are.
So lower your expectations. Just kidding.
Don't give everything away.
Ah,
Well, there's 7 secrets, so that's
There's
just
7
one.
secrets.
yeah, that's just-
10%, 20%.
There's 70%.
There we go. 7 secrets. 10% of it is this.
Oh my God.
Don't give away the secrets. No.
All right. Well,
They'll be good secrets.
thank you again for everyone for coming back to the podcast this week and listening. Don't forget to give us a good rating and share this with your friends as well. Share it on social media or send them a text and say, hey, check out this podcast. We would love it if you would share.
And
Yes.
comment on our blogs and comment on our podcast so we know we're doing a
That
good
you're
job.
listening to us, yeah.
Let us know. I know we have listeners, but we don't hardly hear from any of you guys, so let us know.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks again. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.